Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, friends. I'll get started. Hello. How's it going? I'm Jenn de la Vega. This stream is called Attack the Pantry. It is a deep dive into ingredients, cooking techniques, and recipes to help you cook for yourself during quarantine and, well, you know, the rest of your life. How are we doing? Hi, Lucius. What is up? How was your mackerel lunch? I'm saving my mackerel for tomorrow. I've been on a search for mackerel. All the fish people that I've been asking have just not ordered it, but I think because I asked, all of them ordered it this week. So I'm flush with mackerel. It's a really great oily fish. Yeah, we should talk about mackerel sometime. It'd be fun. Before I get started, I just had a moment of just my stomach dropping. Has that ever happened to you? Like right before you're about to do something, or like right about you're about to go into like a meeting, or like have a phone call. For those of you who don't know what happened in New York last night, you know how in Portland there's this like militaristic force that is, breaking up protests and roughing people up. Well, last night, the police raided Occupy City Hall. They destroyed over $20,000 worth of resources. So, like, food, they, slashed water bottles. They wrecked, sleeping material, donated material, clothing. It's just really upsetting. Like, there are better ways to deal with this, and it's not violence. So a lot of my friends are heading to Union Square at 6 o'clock. I, of course, am going to be here talking to you about food, but I just want you to know that's on my mind, thinking of my friends. And I hope that tonight's protest at Union Square is peaceful and calm, and that none of my friends get arrested. But if they do, we who have stayed home have a job to, help our friends and donate to mutual aid and make sure that they all get out of custody. And, it's a lot. But that's kind of what's happening in New York right now, and it's like really scary that militaristic force can come here and hurt people for peacefully protesting. It's just not cool. But anyway, let's talk about food. Food is like super important to all of that. Like, I've been paying attention to how food has been distributed through mutual aid. We have lots of really cool free fridges in Brooklyn. Like, there's one in Greenpoint where local companies will just put supplies in there. Neighbors will donate supplies, and anyone who needs food can go get it for free, which is amazing. So last week on the stream, we talked about terrines, cherries, and things you should buy at Asian grocery stores. Actually, I forgot that I had cherries. We were talking so much about cherries last week that I had it on my brain, and I got Rainier Cherries. How cute are they? Don't they look like Yoshi melons? Like in Yoshi's story, like grabs a melon or a berry or something. Yeah, these are so good. So, you can watch all the clips here on my channel if you click on videos. You can also watch the archive on youtube.com/JENNDLV. Make sure to subscribe there. I'm almost at 100 followers over on YouTube, and I'm at 140 here on Twitch, which is really amazing. So thank you all for watching and hanging out. Last Sunday, we did Zine Dream stream. We looked at Put an Egg on It, issue 15, a graphic zine called Homeworlds, and then like a commercial product zine called How to Use Okazu, which was very adorable. The business, I'm a Twitch affiliate, so that means you can subscribe to support this channel so I can get a little bit of earning money for producing all this stuff. You can attach your Amazon account if you have one to Twitch, and then you get like a free month to subscribe to anybody, and you get a little crown next to your name in the chat. It's very cute, and you unlock all these emotes and fun things that we can do to interact with each other in the chat. I still haven't mastered all of like the Twitch interaction stuff, but so far we have some real cute emotes on this stream, gotta say. Lots of really good links below to help me out, share the work that I'm doing. You can explore that another time. Tell friends to join this stream so we can talk about food. It's real fun, right? So, Monday. Can't believe that I have over 20 skate videos. The latest video is different because I did the unboxing. You can watch that either on my Instagram Live or on YouTube. I want to finish this cherry. Okay. So, Fun City is a podcast that I'm on, but we're recording a mini-series with the game Still Fleet by Wythe Marshall. It's not fully out yet, but he just released a quick start guide you can buy on itch. And we, announcement, are doing our very first live show at Gen Con. It's August 1st at 10 p.m. Eastern. So you can go to the Gen Con website and register for a free badge and add us to your schedule. So what is Gen Con? It is a tabletop role-playing conference. So lots of podcasts like mine are having live shows, and there are also opportunities to play new tabletop RPG games with people from around the world. Like you get in on a Zoom call and get to roll dice with people and play little games or big games, whatever it is you want to do. There are tons of opportunities that whole weekend, so it's going to be fun. I'm going to try to jump in on a few things. There also might be a slot left on the Stillfleet game with Wythe Marshall, the creator of Stillfleet. So he's testing out the game, making sure that all the rules work and stuff, and so you can participate that way. What else? This week on Patreon, I posted about corn-flavored snow cone. Trust me, it's delicious. A replay of the POCs in Tabletop RPG panel with April Reagan and the Wigged DM. It was really, really fun. I have a new column up about turnips, and how much I hate Animal Crossing and like the economy of turnips. But what you actually can do with real turnips, it's a fun piece. There are like 10 plus ways you can cook turnips. And then a recipe for confetti egg salad because I love putting crunchy things in everything that I cook. So a new culinary word of the day is coming out tomorrow. It's a method for softer buns. You can follow the Twitter, culinary WOTD. You can still submit a word. I've only had 2 submissions so far. So I'm an open book. I mean, I have a list of words that I want to tackle, but I also want to know what other people want to learn about. So what else? I'm still shipping cookbooks on Etsy. If you want to go there, my username is Iridium Jim. And yeah, just explore the links. Enjoy the chat. Stay cool. I have some chat rules in the bottom half of this screen also. Just be nice, basically, and remember that not everybody's at the same cooking level. Don't want to ever, shame anybody about their cooking skills. We just want to support and keep learning together. Yes. Hello, Jimmy. How are you? Lucius is here, Martin's here, Fitzmurphy's here. Yes, I'm so glad you're coming to Gen Con with us. We're so excited. We actually were gonna fly to Minneapolis. I think it was Minneapolis or was it Indianapolis? I don't remember which city it was, but we had an Airbnb and everything, and we were going there, but it's gonna be all online now. So it's going to be a Twitch channel. I think it's Gen Con TV is the username. Yeah, Indianapolis. But we're going to be on August 1st at 10 p.m. First ever live show of Fun City. Very excited. Got some Rainier Cherries here. Cool. So let's look at what everybody cooked this week. Got a lot of submissions. This is so fun. Vance is very spoiled. He's house sitting for friends who live between Japan and New York, and they have a house. Can you imagine? But he's been grilling a lot. So he made burgers with white cheddar and some nice looking hot dogs. Good job, Vance. Keen sent these tacos. He ordered some of the ranch powder from my Etsy store and mixed it with elote powder and has these like chicken soft tacos. They look delicious. Really glad I have these cherries because I'm getting really hungry looking at all this food. I got a really funny text message last night from my friend Chris. He said, "What do you do with 100 pluots?" I mean, what would you do with 100 pluots? Off the top of my head, I told him grill them, pickle them, make jam, make mostarda, lots of condiments, cut up and freeze a bunch, pluot chutney. Lots of things you can do with pluots. Anything you would do with a peach, you can do with a pluot. Yeah. Oh, cider. Oh, the full contact LARPing I do is always there doing a fight demo. Oh my god. Full contact. Never tried it. I don't know if I would be good at it. I'm very small. Yeah, so what would y'all do with 100 pluots? So Martin, Chris has lots of pluots. If you want some. Devin ordered the black sesame furikake from my store and used it on this salmon. It looks so good. I think that's parsley also put on top and then put more of it on the rice in the background. Nice fatty salmon. Joe sent this photo of a breakfast sandwich and my response was, is that a Big Mac breakfast sandwich? And he was like, yes. Pretty good. Massive. Oh, shoot. I guess I didn't put in Lucius's mackerel. I had it. I thought I did. Let me see. Let me grab it real quick. Hopefully I have it somewhere. Here it is. Here's some watercress. This is Lucia's lunch, right? Tomato with basil, some peppers, cremini mushroom, and that lovely mackerel, and some okra. So many vegetables on this plate. I was hiding behind it. Hello. Okay, what else? Martin had some gochujang butter shrimp. Is that right? That sounds nice. Sounds real nice. And then Danelle bought the last bit of my homemade spam from my shop and cooked it up with an egg. And he had some like leftover Argentinian green sauce and like put it all over it. Let me see if I can drag it up here. Yeah, there's some of it there. But Danelle's lunch the other day, A+. In the Philippines, we call this spam silog because it's like whatever it is over rice with an egg. It's like the portmanteau of that. So chorizo and over rice with an egg is chor silog. So this is spam silog. Beef tapa is top silog. You get it, right? So super fun. Good job, everybody. So much cooking. I love to see it. I love to see it. Oh, you had a silog last night? Today we are talking about food preservation and cookies and pickles, but we'll get to that in a second after I do some of this introductory stuff. What was I up to this week? So today's lunch was a mashup of pancit, which is a Filipino rice noodle dish, which is on the left, and then I had a chicken leg with gravy on the right. Usually you would see, mashed potatoes or like green beans or something, but this is kind of like my 90s childhood, like Filipino and American style food all at once on the same plate. Fun. What else? Oh, so this might not look as appetizing as you want it to be right now, but I grew up with a lot of liver products, like potted liver, liverwurst. My dad loves eating it warm on a dinner roll. Like that was kind of breakfast for me regularly. And so I'm not really afraid of liver type things or preserved or pâtés, that kind of stuff. We were eating at a Japanese restaurant, I don't remember, a couple years ago, and my uncle was like, oh, they have ankimo. And I was like, what's ankimo? And it is basically fish foie gras. It is monkfish liver that is pushed into a torchon, which is like a large sausage thing that is poached and then sliced into rounds. So it's like a fishy foie gras. And I discovered at Sahadi's in New York, which is a specialty shop, they carry codfish liver in tins. And I was like, I've never had codfish liver. And to my surprise, it's just like a softer, more luscious ankimo. So I had it with big buttery crackers and some pepper. I ate the whole tin. I used the olive oil as like a salad dressing with a little bit of vinegar. But I ate that whole thing really quickly, and then I Googled it later, and you're supposed to eat it with like a baguette and like slice of lemon. I'll try that next time, but I really liked it. So if you ever see codfish liver like at a French brand, I suggest you try it if you like that stuff. But if you don't, I mean, maybe you don't know how to eat it yet. Yeah. So I was delivering food this week to friends across Bushwick. I was worried, can I do this on a city bike, which is not a bike that I own, but like the local New York bike system that you put in a dock and you pay for per hour. So I was able to do 5 deliveries, like all this food in the basket and in my backpack. I did 5 stops in an hour, which is pretty good, I think. It was 90 degrees. But I did okay. And then when I stopped to see Carol, who stops in on the stream a lot, she gave me a slice of clafoutis, cherry clafoutis, which is a French baked dessert. So there's this bakery off the Myrtle Wyckoff Stomp called Le Imprimerie, and it's run by this French baker named Gus, and he does mostly baguettes and bread, but sometimes he does something special like this, and it is probably one of my favorite desserts ever. Last week you heard me say, I would choose clafoutis over pie. Just preparation-wise, this is much easier to make, because you line up all these cherries in a pan, and then you pour the batter over, and then bake that. Yeah, it's real good. Real good. So earlier in the spring, I had bought tons of garlic scapes. And they're very, very short season at the farmer's market. They're curly Q, like green bean looking things with a bulb on the end. And I took all the bulbs and stored them in water until they dried out and became tiny garlic. So you just take off the outer peel, and these are so small that they haven't developed the paper yet. You don't have to peel every clove. These are so small and so fresh that you don't even have to peel them. You can just pop them off and eat them. So I'm going to try to harvest all of them tonight and pickle them. So this is very exciting. And plus, I've elongated the life of them. Usually the garlic scape part, you kind of try to chew through, and it's just flowers that haven't bloomed yet, and you're like, I don't know about this. So I save the tops, and they turn into baby garlic, which is so fun. Tiny baby garlics. I could also ferment the entire thing and turn the whole thing into black garlic. Yes, great ideas. I'll do half. Do half black garlic, half pickle. And then I had a pretty big undertaking. For those of you who don't know, one of my freelance jobs right now is I'm testing someone's cookbook, and I remember this dish growing up, and I never really went for it. I mean, now adult Jenn, I can't believe I've never made it. But it is chicken relleno. You know how we have chile relleno, which is a stuffed pepper? Chicken relleno is a Filipino dish. It's basically chicken galantine. So you take a chicken, debone the inside, stuff it with pork and whole hard-boiled eggs, and roast the whole thing. So I'll walk you through what happened. So this is the finished slice of chicken relleno. It's beautiful, first of all. So the egg was a 7-minute egg, and so it was pretty jammy when you still sliced into the chicken, which was super fun. So the first thing I did was deboned the middle part of the chicken, so removing the ribs and parts of the thigh bone, but I kept the drumstick and the wings intact. So it was like surgery, I cut down the middle of the backbone, debone the back, stuffed in this pork mixture that has green olive, sliced up pickles, and then made little dents in the stuffing to nest the eggs, and then sewed up the back with string, and then turned it over and trussed it. So I sewed it with thin sewing thread, and then trussed it with butcher twine the other way, and then it got roasted for I don't remember how long, a while. But here it is, the finished slice. So it has a ring of chicken on the outside, the pork stuffing on the inside, and then this jammy egg. What a dream. What a dream. Everyone who ordered from my shop this week got a slice. So I sneak surprises into my Shopify orders every now and then, so this was really cool to share with people. Yeah, crazy, right? So much effort. I'm surprised I never made it before. So that's what I was up to this week, friends. Let me know what you've been cooking up this week in the chat, and if you want me to share photos of what you've been cooking, I'll happily do that next stream. So you can either DM them to me or text me, email me, or tag me in Twitter and Instagram posts. Happy to share your successes and your failures, you know. Failures too. I share my failures, you know. It's part of the learning process, right? Okay. I'm going to stop snacking on these cherries because we have lots to talk about. First of all, can I just say how happy I am to see lots of you in here? This is very nice. Okay. So, Martin asked about food preservation. And this is a very large topic. So I'm going to try to I'm just going to try to skim for you. And if one really is interesting to you, we can focus on another stream about it. So, yeah. So why do we preserve food? Like, what's up with that? What's up with refrigeration? What's up with all that? So, refrigeration obviously isn't enough. We want to preserve food to elongate shelf life of fresh foods. This process has just been around for millennia. A few streams ago, I mentioned like the cultivation of salt was around like 6,000 BC. Like the Roman Empire was really into harvesting salt and trading it. So there are a bunch of methods that we're going to go through, but what they all have in common is preventing dangerous food poisoning. So preservation is sort of codified, like either in recipes or by the National Center for Home Food Preservation. They publish research-based recommendations for most methods of home food preservation. They're based at the University of Georgia, which is really cool, and explains why Alton Brown is why he's so science-based, because he's from Georgia, and that is where the National Center for Home Food Preservation is. So the things that food preservation tries to control, this might be a little elementary for those of you who work in the restaurant industry, but for those of you at home, we have something called the danger zone. How many of you know about what the danger zone is? You know, like Archer, danger zone. The danger zone is a temperature range where bacteria, molds, what have you, dangerous things will thrive. So that is between 40 degrees and 140 degrees. It's really easy to remember, 40 and 140. So everything needs to be refrigerated under 40 degrees or frozen below that, or kept warm at above 140. Because if you fall into the danger zone, that is where bacteria is going to flourish. And there are a lot of exceptions to this, and a lot of rules about it. Like, if you're working in a kitchen, and if you pulled something right from the fridge, it's going to stay at 40 degrees or, at that cold level for around 2 hours technically. So you have that 2 hour period to get it either back into a fridge or start processing it to cook. Get it to 140 degrees. So, generally, when you have food that's out of the fridge, you try to keep it within that 2 hour range, or keep it cool with like an ice bath, or keep a thermometer around to like check it. Whenever there's like a food inspection, that's like the number one thing they're checking for. Like the thermometer is like, oh, did this just come out of the fridge, or has this crab been sitting here all day? Which is not great. Another thing that we like to keep an eye on in food preservation is water activity, or moisture levels, humidity levels. Knowing how much moisture there is, determines, how much mold or bacteria is able to live in that environment. Like, a dried cherry doesn't have any water activity, but a fresh cherry has tons of water activity. So preservation deals with moisture levels as well. So preservation creates hostile environments for that bacteria, mold, and critters. So we deal with temperature, with moisture, and then clean and safe preserving practices. So I'll talk about the last one first, critters. So that's an inevitability. If anything dies, anywhere in the world, if anything dies, the bugs know about it first. Like fruit flies, worms, like all sorts of critters are drawn to decomposition. Even yeasts, airborne yeasts, and like molds and bacteria on surfaces love they love dead things. So you have to do your best to prevent any of that stuff from being able to get into the projects that you have. So for bugs, one of the tricks I have to catch fruit flies is a Vinegar Catcher. Have you seen one of these before? It's a jar that you fill halfway with vinegar, and then put a piece of fruit in it, and you put a paper cone on top, and then fruit flies will fly into the wide part and down into the vinegar, but then they won't be able to find the exit because it's a cone structure. Like I'm afraid of showing you mine because there are a couple fruit flies on it. Maybe I'll take a picture of it later. But that's one way that I catch fruit flies. That's sort of a, it happens in lots of kitchens. Another way that I I just try to keep an eye on any food that is stored out of the fridge. Because sometimes, potatoes, you're not really supposed to refrigerate them. They turn green and produce a lot of sugar, which is not what you want because you want the starch. Onions, you could refrigerate them, but you don't really need to if you need the room. Some tomatoes, I like to store upside down on a surface. But yesterday, this is really unfortunate. Sometimes you don't catch this, but my tomato, I didn't notice it had a little bit of a break in the skin, and I grabbed it to use it, and then there were like this line of fruit flies in the crack of this like tomato, and I was like, oh man. So keep an eye on any food that's stored out of the fridge. Try not to stack stuff because that contact is where things like to grow. Oh shoot, is one of my phones ringing? Mammals. So I don't have, knock on wood, I don't have a rodent problem, but in the past I've had rodent problems in other apartments that I've been in. And the way that I've converted my kitchen is to move everything, like everything in packages, like sugar, flour, things that I roll the top and just put it on the shelf, noodles, that kind of stuff. I've transferred everything to hard plastic containers. Ziplocs won't really cut it because rodents can chew through that stuff. Moths can get into it, so I like to use, I'll show you one actually. Like I have these Crocs, and it has like a suction-y top. Like you can hear it go whoop. So I have like granola in this one, I have flour in another, I have sugar in another. So I've converted my kitchen into like hard plastics and Crocs and ceramics. And then for little stuff that's like the ends of things, like cornstarch, marshmallows, I have rolled up all those packages, but I have a big plastic bin in my kitchen where I keep the ends of those sort of things so that nothing can like climb in or get in, unless, it was like a dog or a cat that can solve puzzles. But that's one way that I prevent rodents. So critters and bugs, that is something preservation people are worried about, because when you get into like long-term storage and like pressure canning and prepping food, it'd be a shame, to lose all that stuff to an infestation. So it's good to have like safe practice. Yeah. So let's talk about the other things. So in preservation, we pay attention to temperature, moisture, and pH. This is cool. So the types of preservation, I'm just going to list them first and then we'll go into them. Canning. So canning, freezing, curing / smoking, drying or dehydrating, fat preservation, jams and jellies, which is more of a sugar application, and then acid, which is what we'll talk about later with pickling specifically. I have an article coming out about canning, I think later in August, which is very exciting, but it's not out yet. Dang. But canning works with a few of these factors that I talked about, but mostly it deals with temperature. So the high percentage of water, like I said, the high water activity in most fresh foods makes them very perishable. They spoil or lose their quality for several reasons. Growth of undesirable microorganisms like that bacteria, the molds, and the yeasts. Activity of food enzymes, reactions with oxygen, and moisture loss. So microorganisms, they live and multiply quickly on the surfaces of fresh food and on the inside of bruised, insect-damaged, and diseased food. So when you are choosing produce at the store or at the farmer's market, examine it, make sure there are no holes. Sometimes, a really tender fresh fruit like strawberries, even their own stems will pierce the neighbors. So you gotta look through before you take it home. Yeah. So proper canning practices include selecting the right produce carefully, make sure it's ripe but also not bruised or broken, has broken skin, washing it right before you're about to process it. If you're gonna just store fruits and vegetables in the fridge, I recommend not washing it, because if you introduce that water, you are introducing a chance for mold or bacteria to grow. Wash things right before you're about to cook them or process them. You can peel some fresh foods. Like, I'm on the fence about that. I think a lot of peels, like a lot of soft peels, are very good for you. They have tons of nutrients. But if you're really scared about, introducing some kind of bacterial growth or whatever, then yes, peel your food, but I don't really think you need to. In canning, it's a common practice is hot packing. So that means sterilizing a jar and putting the food in a hot brine and then putting both of those in the jar at the same time. Cold packing, for example, is if I had dilly beans, if I had green beans, and I put them in the jar and then poured the brine over it, that's a cold pack, versus a hot pack where I put the beans in the brine and then put them in. There's a difference. Because you're sort of like blanching the food as you're doing it. What else? In canning, you know how there's like the lid, like that metal lid, and then the ring that's like two parts? If you properly canned something, pressure canned something, the lid will just self-seal and you can take that ring off. And you can hold it upside down and it won't it won't come out, because in the process of canning, you've put all of these fruits and vegetables in a jar, and then you've covered it, put the ring on, and you put it in a pot of boiling water for like an hour, or like, I don't remember if it's 10 minutes or an hour. the processing times vary, and it's all on the website for the National Preservation Center. But so you process in the boiling water, and then you remove it, and you let them sit for 12 hours at room temperature, like undisturbed, and then you'll hear this like pop, because that heat has created a vacuum inside the can, and then it will pull the lid down, and that's when you can remove the ring. Yeah, it's pretty fun when you can a lot of food. Like, I did a whole bunch of I did a case of tomatoes once in cans, and I just put them on the counter, and I was like reading a book, and then all of a sudden I heard this like pop, 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 ding, ding. It's kind of like a more dramatic version of the Snapple cap pop. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, so canning removes oxygen, destroys enzymes with the heat, prevents the growth of undesirable bacteria, yeasts, and molds, and it helps form that high seal vacuum. Yeah, so good vacuums form tight seals, and they keep liquid in and air and the microorganisms out. And if you've canned something successfully, it will last you up to a year unrefrigerated. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Snapple Pop is so satisfying. I agree. So, when you're canning, it's important to have clean equipment. So that means sterilizing the lids and the rings and the jars. It's recommended that you boil the jars, like the glass jars, for like 10 minutes in water, like fully submerged. They changed the rules. You don't necessarily have to sterilize the lids and the rings, but I would, just to be safe. Yeah. Another step that's, helpful if you do get into canning as like a habit, is blanching. So when you can things, you want to, it's not the same as pickling. So blanching is like par cooking things before you can them. It kind of softens the texture, makes green beans a little bit greener. It's like, so you don't bite into like a raw thing. I don't know. Blanching helps like get rid of more of that water and oxygen inside the vegetable. Yeah, but that's a step. It's an optional step for some of the recipes. It's recommended for some more than others, but you can just read between recipes and check. So with water canning, it's recommended to use the stovetop with like a pot of water, or a pressure canner, which is like an appliance you can buy. The oven is not recommended, even though there are tons and tons of blogger recipes for oven canning. It's just not tested or like a uniform method. It would be really unfortunate if your oven got too hot and you popped like 8 glass jars in your oven. That would suck. That would totally suck. Yes, you can can green beans without them getting mushy. Yes. That's part of the blanching process. They stay crisp. And if they got mushy, though, that means that the seal wasn't complete, and that the pH inside the jar was not high enough to preserve it. Like the balance was off. Or that they were too ripe anyway to begin with. Ooh. So that's canning in a nutshell. There's a lot more to learn about it. We can, if you're interested, we can get into it. And I'll happily share that article when I'm done. But the next one is freezing. Freezing is a form of preservation. So imagine the 50s when the fridge was invented. It was only the ice box, which is just technically refrigeration. Hard freezing wasn't really standard yet. So imagine all the new recipes that got developed when the freezer was invented. So there are these really fun, like, 50s cookbooks of, like, the freezer's your friend. The freezer's the housewife's friend. Oops. Dropped the seed on the ground. So yeah, freezing is a form of preservation. And the most common way is flash freezing. It may sound really fancy, but flash freezing is something you can do at home. So for those of you who have a CSA or go to the farmer's market a lot, and you know you're not going to finish everything, you can flash freeze. So you can blanch these things beforehand, like that's like a minute or two water bath, like in salt water, before you freeze stuff. But basically, flash freezing is taking a sheet pan and lining up vegetables in a single layer, freezing that for like, an hour, and then you can put them in a Ziploc bag or in a Tupperware or something. Because if you were to just take a bag of vegetables and freeze them, they're going to get all stuck together. You need to flash freeze things so that it'll form that little ice layer first, and then you'll be able to handle it better. You can break things up better. You can also control the portions that way. So I highly recommend flash freezing. But going along with that, if you're going to start freezing things to preserve, you have to manage your freezer really well. I've been a chef for like over a decade, but the freezer has always been something that, I don't know, not necessarily my enemy, but something that I battle with, because I'm the kind of person who, when you open my freezer, something will fall out and hit you in the foot. It's like Tetris in there. I also sometimes have a point where I use kitchen tape to shut my freezer because it won't close. I know, that's really bad. You shouldn't overstuff your freezer because then the air won't circulate. So right now, my freezer is actually very manageable. I can see everything. I know what everything is in there because I've labeled it. That's another habit you should pick up, is labeling everything in your freezer with what it is and the date that you put it in. Because if you can't tell what it is, it's been so freezer burned you don't know what it is, probably not a good idea to eat it. You need that air to circulate in the freezer for it to all stay the same temperature. Because if you don't ever try to cool a soup in the freezer, because it's going to bring down the temperature for everything else in there. And if you put something hot in the freezer, it's more likely to create frost inside the container, because all that heat, the steam, is staying inside the container, and then it's going to hit the top, condense, and then like icicle down into the food. So yeah, don't put hot things in the freezer, even though you need to cool stuff. There are safer, good ways to cool things down. Like for soup, a restaurant trick is to widen the surface area. So if you're using like a small saucepan, it's good to put it in a wide hotel pan to cool, because you've created so much more surface area. There's a lot more room for the steam to escape. So that's one restaurant trick for you. Yeah. So how many times can you freeze something? Does someone know the answer in the chat? You should really only be freezing things twice ever. The reason is, the more times that you thaw it, it will pass through that danger zone. Technically, yes, once. So if you know that a grocery store has previously frozen the fish already once, then you can only freeze it one more time. But if you know something is fresh, or you bought it yourself, you bought it from the farmer's market, you can only really freeze things twice. You can risk it, you can freeze things more than that, but I wouldn't really recommend it, because by that time, imagine if we're talking about green beans, right? There's moisture inside the green beans. It freezes, right? It freezes into a solid water in the green bean. You defrost it once, the water comes out. You freeze it again, there's less water inside of it. You defrost it, and you lose more water. And then by then, the plant structures have broken down so much that it's just limp, mushy stuff, which is not so fun. So yeah. Another thing with freezer preservation is knowing how to safely thaw stuff. So you can leave it in the sink, but I wouldn't leave it in the sink all day because then it's going to reach the danger zone. So the safest way to thaw things is in a container in the fridge. So I would defrost things the night before you need them in the fridge, because in the fridge it will take longer to defrost things than it would outside of the fridge, but at least the temperature is going to be low enough for nothing to grow on it. So remember that when you're thawing stuff, do it in the fridge and put it in a container because of all that condensation. Even though you've double wrapped your beef, beef gets real bloody when it defrosts. So I would always put like a sheet pan or a plastic container underneath anything that you are thawing. Right? Right. Cool. I actually have a diagram for you. Where is it? Ingredient photos. I thought I had. Oh, foods that don't freeze well. This is from the National Preservation Center. Foods that do not freeze well. Cabbage, celery, cress, cucumbers, endive, lettuce, parsley, radishes. So it, as usual use, raw salad, which is true. The reason for this is that those vegetables at the top are all very watery. Celery is mostly water. Cabbage is mostly water. I would say you could technically freeze cabbage. I've done it before. But it doesn't freeze well, because once you defrost it, it's limp, and what it says in the far column here, waterlogged, quickly develops oxidized color, aroma, and flavor. Yeah. I don't know why it says Irish potatoes baked or boiled. Oh, already cooked potatoes, yeah. Soft, crumbly, mealy. So this is something that is interesting. So what goes wrong with cooked potato is kind of the same thing when it comes to making fried tofu. So what doesn't work with Irish cooked potatoes does work with tofu, my friends. So tofu is made better by freezing it, because all that water is suspended in place, right? It's like all the tofu has so much water. So all that water is like suspended in place when it's frozen. But then when you defrost it, all those structures, as the water had expanded in the freezer, so water expands when it freezes. And so inside the tofu, it's creating all these airy, bubbly structures. So the ice is expanding as it freezes. And then when you defrost it, all that water melts off and is gone, but leaves the structure, which is cool. It works in tofu, but not in potatoes, because it doesn't have that same protein structure. It's more of a starchy structure. And so instead of holding the structure in place in potatoes, it crumbles, which results in like a mealy texture. Let's see. Oh yeah, cooked macaroni by itself, spaghetti and rice do not freeze very well. But if they are mixed with the cheese sauce, or spaghetti with tomato sauce, rice in risotto, those freeze well. But if they're by themselves, it's because they're just such individualized things. They just it just changes too much structure in the freezer by themselves. They need something else covering them. Meringue in desserts, I've never tried freezing that. Icing made from egg whites, apparently. Cream or custard filling should always be made fresh. Yeah, they always taste better that way. Plus, eggs separates when it sits for too long. Not great. Milk sauces, I actually have never had trouble with, like, freezing a bechamel. I don't know, maybe that's me. Sour cream, hell no, it's disgusting when you freeze it. It's so gross. Cream cheese also gets real crumbly and real nasty in your mouth. Like, I did not love that. Gelatin? Frozen gelatin. I guess that answers my question why we don't have frozen Jell-O. Interesting. Fried foods, except for French fried potatoes and onion rings. Why? Oh, yeah. Zucchini gets real, soggy in the freezer. Wait, freezer slaw, freezer pickles? Interesting. I'm gonna have to Google that later. But these are lists of foods that don't freeze very well. But most everything will. Right? Yeah. Cool. Let's go back. Where am I? Hi! Big screen. So that brings us to the next, I guess, style of preservation that deals with temperature and moisture is curing and smoking. Yay! This primarily deals with heat and salt, and mostly meats and fish, which is really exciting. I know there are a lot of vegetarian chefs that are playing around with smoked vegetables or like barbecue watermelon. I don't know if you've seen that before, but it's really fascinating. So with smoking and curing, the salt is wicking away all of that water activity, and smoke is at high enough temperature to kill off any bacteria. And I have this book that I've showed you several times. This is Charcuterie by Michael Roman and Brian Polson. And you can see how many Post-its I have in here. So, curing and smoking deals mostly with salt and heat. Let me read you a little bit of the introduction here. So this is just in a nutshell. Hello. Why? Okay. The reason for this book, why we still love and need hand-preserved foods in the age of the refrigerator, the frozen dinner, Domino's Pizza, and the 24-hour grocery store. Num, 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 num. Okay, I don't want to read that part. This is not a book to help you get dinner on the table fast or tell you to whip together an impromptu dinner party for 8. It's a book about craftsmanship for people who love to cook and eat. In this chapter, we describe its genesis, that is, why on earth would we devote 2 years of our lives to an entire cookbook, to long love song, to animal fat, to salt, to the pig, as well as use our own recipes. La 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 la. Where is it? This is a history of charcuterie in the sense of salting, smoking, and cooking to preserve, may date almost to the origins of Homo sapiens. It has been carried on in many forms through virtually every culture, and it has been one of the foundations of human survival in that it allowed societies to maintain a food surplus, there we go, good reason, and therefore helped turn early peoples from nomads into clusters of homebodies. Sausage recipes date to before the golden age of ancient Greece. Even before that, the Egyptians were fattening geese for their livers and possibly making the first pâté de foie gras. In fact, the need to preserve food may well have been what led us to cook it in the first place, and then only by accident. It's not unlikely that the ancestors of Homo sapiens hung surplus raw food over fire to keep away bugs and animals. In the morning, they discovered that it was smoked hot, tender, and delicious. Other historians have suggested that our ancestors first discovered and cooked food in the form of animals that had perished in forest fires and then began to cook food on purpose. Regardless of how they discovered cooking, they surely realized that cooking made food not only taste good, but last longer. Okay, so I want to talk about salt. They have a little bit here. Where is it? So with curing, there's a lot of math. Because we want to keep the the salinity at a high percentage so that we can kill all of the bacteria and stuff. Salt, whether dry in a brine, is a powerful rock that not only keeps our bodies alive, but has helped us to preserve food for millennia, shaping civilizations as it graces our kitchen table. The following recipes describe how and why it works and some of the amazing food you can create when using salt as lever. So we have a basic dry cure that uses pink salt, which is very different from Himalayan pink salt. Pink nitrate curing salt is what a lot of these charcuterie recipes use. That's what keeps Spam super pink, and it makes like prosciutto like super seasoned up, you know? Here, salt, one of those items in everyone's daily life, is completely quiet, resting inside a shaker on the kitchen counter. In truth, though, it's a miracle. In its place in the history of civilization attests to this. La 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 la. Without the mineral sodium chloride, our muscles would cease to function. Our organs would starve. Because our body doesn't produce it and because we need it to survive, humans developed a distinct sense for salt, and our bodies are highly attuned to the need for salt. Yeah, historically, human beings have gotten plenty of salt from meat and non-meat eating animals and have relied on salt licks or natural salt deposits. Beyond our bodies, and beginning with the earliest known civilization, salt, a very concentrated pure form of these two essential elements, sodium and chloride, has been the foundation of entire economies. Wow. It's not time that spoils meat or causes vegetables to rot. It is the bacteria and other microbes feeding on food that do. So if we salt meat or fish, if we soak vegetables in a salt solution, we can disable or kill those microbes and thus dramatically delay or halt their destruction of our food. Yeah. So this is super fun. So the things that you can salt cure: your own fresh bacon, pancettas, guanciales, salt pork, salt cod, fennel cured salmon, duck prosciutto, beef jerky. Let's see. And then there's brines. You know, you can brine a chicken or a turkey for Thanksgiving. You can brine pork chops. You can brine corned beef and then smoke it, which is really fun. And then we get into, let's see, where's the hot smoking? I want to get to the hot smoking. So that's just salt curing. Hello. Home smoking. Smoke. Curing with salt and smoking go hand in hand. Smoking foods was indeed once an aid in the preservation of meat and fish, but in contemporary cooking it is fundamentally a matter of enhancing flavor and color in substantial ways. Is it pretension on a chef's menu to list applewood smoked bacon? No, the smoke from the wood of an apple tree or almost any fruit tree produces a sweeter, milder result than a harder wood such as hickory, with its powerfully flavored wood smoke. It matters. Smoke a delicate fish over pear wood and you'll understand. In this chapter, we discuss smoking fish, meat, vegetables, and nuts. And so they have whiskey glazed smoked chicken, hot smoked duck ham, maple cured smoked bacon, smoked ham hocks, tasso ham, which is one of my favorites, Canadian bacon, pastrami, it's a really famous smoked thing, barbecue, smoked jalapenos, hell yeah, smoked salmon, and smoked scallops. Very exciting. We smoke food primarily to make it taste better. Smoking has negligible preservative effects, but it's still lumped with salt curing, and why that they are usually paired together. So salt cure and then a smoke is usually the process. We also smoke food to give it a rich color. Smoke results in appetizing appearance. The level of heat defines the type of smoking. Cold smoking does not cook the food. Hot smoking cooks it gently and slowly, and smoke roasting and pan smoking cook the food as if it were in a hot smoke-filled oven. The longer the meat is smoked, the deeper the flavor and the color will be. Yes. Smokes, this is from Harold McGee. Smoke's useful results from its chemical complexity. It contains many hundreds of compounds, some of which kill or inhibit microbes, some of which retard fat oxidation and the development of rancid flavors, and some of which add an appealing flavor on their own. Yes. So, we can talk about smoking at home another time, but this is generally what's up with smoking. So that was Charcuterie by Michael Roman and Brian Polson. This is something that I refer to a lot. You can see that it's been well worn. So, addressing moisture in food preservation, we go to dehydration or drying. Usually that is with a dehydrator, or you can even use your oven. My old roommate Jeff would crack the oven open with a wooden spoon he didn't care about, and he'd make beef jerky that way. So the high sugar and acid content of fruits make them safe to dry outdoors, when conditions are favorable for drying. So you can also safely sun dry things outside. So vegetables and meats are not recommended for sun drying. So vegetables are low in sugar and acid. This increases the risks of spoilage. Meats are high in protein, making them ideal for microbial growth when heat and humidity cannot be controlled. So it's best to dry meats and vegetables indoors using controlled conditions of an oven or a food dehydrator. Excuse me. To dry fruits outside, you need a hot, dry, breezy day. Actually, right now in New York City, it's kind of perfect during the day to sun dry things. So minimum temperature of 85 degrees is needed, with higher temperatures being ideal. It takes several days to dry foods outside, and because the weather is uncontrollable, drying fruits can be risky. If it rains, the whole supply will ruin. High humidity in the south is a problem for drying fruits outside. A humidity below 60% is best. And fruits that are dried outdoors can be covered or brought under a shelter at night. The cool night air condenses and could add moisture back to the food, which undoes everything you've been trying to do with it. So let me show you this guide I think I have for sun drying. Here we go. They have a diagram for how to do this at home if you have the space. So it's like racks with two screens sandwiched on top of each other. I have room for this, actually. So it's a double screen that's sandwiched because animals can't get into it. I have a lot of birds and squirrels over here, so I don't know. Let me see here. Racks of screens placed on the blocks allow for better air movement around the food. Screens need to be safe for contact with food. Best screens are stainless steel, Teflon coated, fiberglass, and plastic. Because birds and insects are attracted to dry fruits, 2 screens are best. That's funny. Yeah. But they recommend sun drying. That's why we have sun-dried tomatoes. Or like sun-dried raisins. Yeah, so you can sun-dry fruit. Great. Ooh. Drying. So what can you make with the drying preservation technique? You can make jerky. You can make fruit leather. You can make dried fruit chips, dried vegetable chips, and you can even dry tomato paste. A lot of hikers and preppers dry sriracha and tomato paste into sheets that you can bring with you and then rehydrate when you're camping. It's pretty cool. I would get a lot of trash pandas in my yard, it's true. Another way that we preserve by taking away moisture is by preserving in fat. So a French technique for preserving duck legs is called confit, which is slowly cooking a duck leg in its own duck fat and then leaving the duck fat to harden in the fridge. And so it becomes like what is that called in Star Wars? You know what I'm talking about? The Han is frozen. When you preserve things in fat, you're eliminating the air and water, inside the mixture. This also applies to pâtés when you're topping them with aspic or butter. You can preserve herbs in a compound butter. And then this is also the same reason why you pour a layer of olive oil when you make pesto, because you're trying not to let those herbs expose themselves to the air and oxidize. So that's why you put a layer of olive oil over any pesto that you've made. Wow. Talking for a long time about this. We might not get to the other subjects, my friends. This is a really big topic, I told you. And then when we preserve, we also talk about pH. So a distinguishing characteristic of pickled or preserved things is that they need to be a pH of 4.6 or lower. Do you remember high school chemistry? Acids are on the lower end on the 14-point scale, and bases are on the higher end. So 14 is really basic, and number 1 is really acidic. And so for something to be a safe pH for pickling or canning, it needs to be at a pH of 4.6 or lower. That is sufficiently tested to kill most bacteria. And so this acidity level also applies to not just pickling, but to jams and jellies. So there's a lot of names for this, and I'm going to try to untangle it for you. But jam, jelly, preserves, conserves, and marmalades are fruit products that are jellied or thickened. Most are preserved by sugar. And it depends on what kind of fruit is used and the proportions of different ingredients. So jellies are usually made by cooking fruit juice with sugar. So there's like no chunkies in it. A good jelly is clear and firm enough to hold its shape when it's turned upside down, but quivers like Jell-O. You know, when it's cut, it should be tender, yet retain like the angle of the cut. It shouldn't slope, and it should be like flavorful, fresh, and fruity. What's up? So jellies, fruit juice with sugar. Jams are thick, made by cooking crushed or chopped fruits with sugar. So this is chunkies. Jams tend to hold their shape, but less firm than jelly. Preserves are small whole fruit or uniform sizes of fruit in a slightly gelled like syrup. So the fruit should still be like whole and tender and plump. They're not crushed or cooked down. Conserve or conserva is like jam-like, with a combination of fruits. So what I've been talking about so far, jams, jelly, preserves, have all been a single fruit in a jar, but conserve is when you mix them together. Sometimes they also mix in like nuts, or raisins or coconuts. Marmalades are soft fruit jellies containing small pieces of fruit or peel evenly suspended in a transparent jelly. So that is like orange marmalade. This is mostly citrus fruit, like grapefruit marmalade, that kind of stuff. Other fruit products that are preserved by sugar but not jellied include butters, so like apple butter, honeys, and syrups. Fruit butters are sweet spreads made by cooking fruit pulp with sugar to a thick consistency. Spices like cinnamon and clove are usually added. Honeys and syrups are made by cooking fruit juice or pulp with sugar to the consistency of honey or syrup. So you can have like cherry honey. So there's a difference between cherry honey and cherry blossom honey. So cherry honey is you've cooked down the fruit juice of cherry with sugar to get a honey consistency. Cherry blossom honey is bees who have pollinated with cherry blossoms and the honey that comes from that. So those are two very different like flavor directions when it comes to definitions of honey. And finally, acid, like dealing with acid in the pH, brings us to lacto fermentation and pickling. I don't know if we're going to have time for all of this stuff. Maybe we might push it to next week. I mean, I did all this research, so I'm ready for next week, which is very exciting. But I'll just tell you quickly that my perspective about pickling is that you can pickle most anything. Like, you can name an ingredient in the chat, and I can tell you that we can probably pickle it. Just quickly, pickling likely first originated in the Indus Valley civilization in northwest India around 2400 BC. Yo. New York's Food Museum's Pickle History section points out that the archaeological evidence of cucumbers native to India being pickled and exported to the Tigris Valley of Iraq in 2030 BC. Indian pickles are mostly prepared in 3 ways: in either a salt brine, an oil, and then a vinegar, with mango pickle being the most popular of them all. And then I think next week, so I think we should push cookies and pickling to next week because I talked for a very long time. But I want to show you this book that we'll go through next week, Asian Pickles by, I think it's Karen Solomon. I've been cooking a lot of stuff from this book, and it's a lot of like your not mainstream pickles, which is super fun. Like I'll read you some of the bookmarked ones I have. cucumber and shallot pickle, hot carrot pickle, a sweet pickled garlic, and then pickled shiso leaves and shiso vinegar. Doesn't that sound fun? It looks beautiful too. Yeah, let's punt the pickling talk and cookies to next week. Sorry I didn't get to it, but the preservation question was just so big. So we'll continue that next week. For now, how about we do our fun exercise so I'm not the only one like talking for a while. Let's name some ingredients in the chat and try to mash them up together. So if you're new to the chat, this is a segment of the show where we name like 3 or 4 ingredients in the chat. Anyone can name an ingredient, and then we can work together to figure out how to mash up 2 of the items or all of them. And it's just an exercise to help us understand like the width and the breadth of ingredients. So number 1, lentils. Thanks, Fitzmurphy. Roast beef. Thank you, Athletic LT. Lentils, roast beef. What else? This is fun. It's like we're on Chopped, friends. I got asked to be on Chopped, but I didn't really have a good experience with it. Cherry tomatoes. I'll tell you about it. So Chopped is filmed in New York, and I went through the casting process, and I'm probably not supposed to talk about this, but whenever they film a show, they always have a local chef on call backstage, and so I've been asked to be that chef. Because, I don't know if you know this, but anyone who appears on that show can easily be disqualified for running into a judge in the hallway. It's like a game show rule. Like quiz show, like was controversial about cheating, and so Chopped is super, super serious about cheating. So I was an on-call chef for Chopped, and they wouldn't pay for my transportation at 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to sit in a room by myself. I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom unless I had an escort. Like I had to text somebody to wait for them to come and then bring me to the bathroom, and then they had to walk me back. And it was just like really strange. Okay, so we have lentils, roast beef, cherry tomatoes. Let's work with this. So lentils have a few different colors and types. Lentils de puy, which are brown, are a little bit more solid. Then we have yellow lentils, which are like dal, and which mash up a little bit better. They get smoother. So there's several kinds of lentils. There's roast beef, so that's already fully cooked. So we can slice it. We can turn it into we can slice it into a spiral and turn it into a sheet and stuff it with something. Cherry tomatoes, they can be raw. We can roast them with some olive oil, salt, and pepper. We can dry them. We can sun dry them like we saw earlier. You can sun dry those. What else can you do with cherry tomatoes? We can make a salsa with them. All right, let's mash up lentils, roast beef, and cherry tomatoes. What ideas do you have here? Already, you can just have like a nice bowl of lentils with chopped cherry tomato and like little cubies or slices of roast beef. That sounds nice. We can also boil the roast beef and make a beef broth. You're going to make a sandwich. You're going to make a roast beef sandwich with tomato and like a lentil puree. I know you. Oh, speaking of sandwiches, this could be really fun. We could do lentil cake. So, like, lentils are legumes, they're pulses. Legumes can be made into, like, a burger. So it could be a veggie burger, or, like, a falafel with roast beef and, like, tomatoes that have been tossed in lemon juice and olive oil. Yeah. I know it. I know you. You're going to make a sandwich. So Lucius with roast tomatoes, the roast beef, and roast lentils. I don't think I've ever roasted lentils. Oh, the camping company, like Patagonia with the backpacks and like camping equipment, they have a new food division, and one of the trail snacks that they've released this year is like a lentil mix. So it's like crunchy baked lentils with like sunflower seeds and like cumin, I think, and curry. It's delicious, but it's a very small packet, you know. But crunchy lentils is something we can do. Ooh, so we can make crunchy lentils and then coat the roast beef in it and then slice that. We can make a cherry tomato salsa. When we have tacos. Yeah, we could do tacos. Tostadas sound really good too. Oh no, it's raining. Oh shoot, that means it's raining on the protest. Oh, crap. My friends are gonna be all wet. It's terrible. What other ideas do you have, friends? So we have lentils, roast beef, cherry tomatoes. There's a really fun tapa that I've been seeing in Spanish cookbooks where you hollow out a cherry tomato and stuff it with things. So we could do like lentil stuffed cherry tomato. We could even do like chop up the roast beef and stuff it in the cherry tomato. You can make we can make kebabs. The roast beef and tomato. Well, let's see. We could do a beef stew with some tomatoes. Lentil soup sounds really good with beef broth. Right? This is great. I love these ideas. Does anyone have a curveball ingredient we want to put in here with our lentils, roast beef, and cherry tomato? There was a sandwich episode of Chopped last night, and I thought I had a chance to not get eliminated first. I know, right? How about refried beans? Okay, let's mash up refried beans, lentils, roast beef, and cherry tomato. Oh my god, and peanut butter. Ah, peanut butter. Whenever I see peanut butter in a savory context, I'm always thinking like curry. A peanut curry. So we can have lentil peanut curry. Oh, actually, that sounds real good. Yes. Lentil peanut curry with crushed tomato. We can slice the roast beef into super, super thin slices and then dry that as like a roast beef jerky to go with it. Oh my god, lavender. Oh no. Lavender can go with the lentils and the tomato for sure, but I'm not sure about the roast beef. I'm always afraid of lavender because I think chefs use it too heavily. It's very fragrant. It makes me feel like I'm in a bathroom. I need to work with lavender more. I do have some in my pantry. My friend Caroline Cho, who runs this blog called Create Plate, she gave me a bunch of lavender when we did a honey lavender chicken dish photo shoot, which was really fun. So honey and lavender go really well. Cream and lavender go really well. Yeah. Wow. Lavender tomato. I don't know. We'll see. Peanut butter and lavender. I'm not so sure about peanut butter and lavender. I'm a little afraid of that. Though I have those two ingredients, I could just try it. Does anyone else have any ideas on how to mash up these things? Refried beans and beef sound really great together. Tomatoes and refried beans makes sense, yes. There's fresh lavender at the farmer's market. I know, they always have that booth. It's so purple. Like, it makes me think, like, how much freaking lavender is growing in New York City? I don't see it anywhere. I guess upstate there's just fields and fields of it. Roast beef sandwich with peanut butter in between brioche. Okay, yeah, I'm alright with that. Honey lavender tea. Oh, yeah, that sounds good too. Honey lavender tea. That sounds great. Well, friends, this has been really fun. Thank you for mashing up all these crazy ingredients with me. I think the peanut butter and tomato would be a great sauce just to jar. You just have it. I know, I like peanut butter on a lot of things too. My favorite peanut butter cookie is from Ovenly. It's like 4 ingredients and they use an ice cream scoop and it just keeps that shape of like an ice cream after it's been baked. You should look up the recipe for ovenly peanut butter cookies. It's really good and it's really easy. And that you top it with like Maldon salt. Okay, friends, I am going to get out of your face and make some dinner and relax. I hope you all are safe and getting some sleep this week. I know how stressful it is. I hope that if you are in New York and you're going to the protests, that you are calm and that it's peaceful. If you are engaging in, in any of that stuff outside, like I hope you are okay. And I hope that everybody's cooking well and that you have lots of ideas in the kitchen. And if you have more questions, feel free to tweet at me or message me on Instagram with any cooking questions. I have a lot of answers. So next week we'll continue. We'll start right off with pickling and lacto fermentation. And then we'll get into the cookies like you requested. Boy, do I have opinions about cookies. And then after that, we already have a request for noodles. So we'll get into noodles after that. So we've got lots to talk about next week. I will see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. And then I will also be streaming about zines on Sunday at 12 p.m. So friends, have a great Wednesday. Be safe. I like you. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.